Well, okay, Internet. You're going to be back for episode number 37 of Kenter at Your Own Risk, with Kent and Chris talking about episode 10 of season 1 of House of the Dragon, The Black Queen. And after that, you're going to get a few weeks off from us, instead of the constant week after week, in-your-face, hard-hitting coverage of this actually pretty awesome HBO series. That being said, I had a pretty good week. It was a short week at work with a lot of bullshit there, but as soon as I got done, my father-in-law came to visit for my birthday, which is, makes me feel pretty honored. I got to have some sushi tonight, which is always my favorite thing in the world to eat. And talking to Kent, he's feeling better, but he still sounds sick. So outside of that, Kent, how was your week?
So I need to admit, I've never had sushi in my life, so just go admit that right now.
I haven't been back upstate New York in a while. I mean, are there even sushi places up there?
There are a couple of places. I can't vouch for, the quality of them, obviously. But there are a couple of places you can get it. I have no idea. I'm just not much into seafood at all to begin with, so.
Well, I would imagine, they're not in, Johnstown or Gloversville, but maybe, Amsterdam, Schenectady, Saratoga, that kind of stuff?
There is one in Gloversville, I think.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I believe so. So, yeah, interesting. Aside from that, it's been a week of... I've just been so exhausted that to get into doing anything has been an absolute challenge. So, I haven't done jack shit. My October it started cool and has been atrocious since then. So, I'm happy that we're nearing the end. I'm a little sad that I didn't do more. But there's always November.
Did I tell you what we're doing for Halloween?
Nay.
My wife got my son the Eddie Munson costume from season 4 of Stranger Things. And she is dressing up as Dustin. And so we got me the Scoops Ahoy Steve costume from season 3.
Awesome.
And we got my father-in-law Hopper's Hawaiian shirt from season 3. So we're going to do a Stranger Things Halloween.
That's awesome, man. Did you ever get around to playing Stranger Things, season 3, the video game?
I have it on my computer and I think on my Xbox, and I've never played it.
I've played through it twice now. I must admit, it's way more fun than it probably should be.
It was one of those good, retro kind of new age games.
Yeah, they really followed season 3 as very close for a video game, and it was very playable, very fun, and you could pick and choose among tons of characters, and I don't know, I by and large I didn't mind the mechanics of having to switch characters to do various things. I liked it. I'd recommend it.
If I wasn't in my dad bod shape, I would have just done shirtless Billy, but since I am, I was like, that was my costume 20 years ago, not now.
I'd like to think I'm more, God, I can't even think of the dude that's funny. He's older. He hangs out with Joyce in season 4.
Oh, Murray.
Murray, yeah. That would be me.
So, now that we've digressed for almost 4 minutes, what'd you think overall of this episode? Before we get into the specifics.
It was fine. I'm happy that they didn't do... I don't know, I was starting to wonder if they were going to go and basically do the exact same time frame as the previous episode, only with Rhaenyra's side, but they didn't. They just continued on the timeline, which I liked. Some of the stuff was better than others for me. Damon and Rhaenyra had such an interesting dynamic this episode that we hadn't really seen between those two. So that was interesting. I also really enjoyed Rhaenys. Kind of see her... I don't want to say evolution. It wasn't an evolution. It was just kind of how things had to be. So
one of the reviewers that I watched on YouTube was like, Rhaenys was like Damon all season long in this episode. She was like the dude leaning up against the wall, smirking while like everything was going on in like every scene she was in.
She had a lot of looks going on this week, and I was very appreciative of that. And I was happy to see Corley's back, because I don't know. I wasn't sure if we were actually going to get him or not.
I mean, he's looking pretty healthy for somebody whose apparent death sparked off a whole succession dispute.
Yeah, I fully expected him to be, like, hobbled, like, disheveled, like, not necessarily Skeletor, but...
Like the black version of Viserys.
Yeah, like, I expected so much worse, and no, he's just got a limp and a cane. Okay, he's good to go. I don't know, it wasn't... I don't want to say it was a memorable episode, because aside from the ending, it wasn't the most memorable episode by any means. But it was still good, and I'm super intrigued by getting to know more of these dragons.
So I would definitely agree with you, and of course, wait until just as soon as that it wasn't a very memorable episode. Up until the end. But, I mean, I think that's fine for, like, middle season episodes. How do you think it compared to, like, season finales?
That's where it was a little weak. The thing is, they realized that this was not the strongest episode, so they had to end it. I mean, I'm guessing this was all in the source material anyway, but... they had to give us some kind of big ending, and in that regard, they did deliver. But for season finale, compared to other Game of Thrones, like this would be, if you compared it to every Game of Thrones season finale, this would be the weakest episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm unanimous, but I think season 6 probably still for me is one of the strongest. You know, you have Cersei blowing up King's Landing and Jon being crowned king in the north, to cap the two different sides of what's going on. And Dany finally leaving Meereen. And then this, I really felt like even with how it ended, it probably needed like another 20 minutes to really get us to what we needed to be. I mean, we had a lot of unanswered questions, I don't know.
This was an episode 8, not an episode 10.
Exactly. That's really what it felt like.
It's not sitting there making me go, gosh, I can't wait for the next season. Like, yeah, I am excited, but Game of Thrones, those season finales, they got me amped for the following season. I'm excited only because we're doing the blog and podcast. Like, if we weren't doing that, apathy?
I mean, I was, like, to go back to our first episode discussion, I wasn't interested in really talking about this before I watched the first episode. And then it was good enough that I was like, okay, you won back a lot of the negative feelings that the last season of Game of Thrones threw at us. And I would say they're still relatively here. Like, there were more highs than lows in this season for sure. But, this, like you said, it wasn't something to make me super excited for season 2. I get they were trying to make it like a little more intimate at the ending, but it didn't like have the bombast in it. They did time jumps in weird places where they probably didn't need to, and then they rushed stuff that was all in the same time frame. When they
agreed. Yeah. I will say, we've kind of been touching on this the past 2 weeks. The new Rhaenyra actress is growing on me. I'll say that for her, at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, she was good. Like Matt Smith is still doing really good. I do think Patty Considine probably deserves the Emmy this year. Hands down.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a bunch, so I can't compare it to other performances, but he did a hell of a job, and he deserves consideration at the very least. And, I don't know, I think I needed something more, and I don't know what that something more is, but I needed something more in this episode.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I don't think we needed a big action fest or whatever, but like
A cliffhanger.
we needed at least for the war to actually start. And although the instigating event happens in this episode, we don't actually get, like a declaration of war or, an acknowledgement of everything that's gone on. It's kind of ambivalent towards that whole thing for most of the episode.
Honestly, one thing I would have actually been okay with is if they would have left the cloaked person walking away from the flaming building that was in episode 9. They could have put that in here, for example, and that would have added a little bit of intrigue. I mean, I know that would have switched locations, and that's something that they weren't really going back to King's Landing for this particular episode, and I get that, but something little like that would have added some bit of intrigue, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, as it is, this was another, even minus the search for Waldo last episode, this was another episode similar to that one where everything's, for the most part, in one location, tightly constrained, decent amount of scenes, but a lot of just dialogue and discussions. We do get a bunch.
Episode 8 was the last good episode for me.
We do get a bunch of new characters in this one that we've never seen before, which is awesome to do in episode 10 of your 10-episode season.
That's right. I mean, we still don't know the name of Helena and Aegon's children, so we're into introducing characters without names or just introducing characters. Yeah, it don't matter. None of it matters, I guess.
All right, so where the hell do we start? It's with
Rhaenyra and Luke talking, worried about Corlys dying, and he doesn't want Driftmark.
He's worried, naturally, like a young teenager would be, that I'm following, the guy known as the greatest sailor ever. How am I going to command? I don't even know anything. I get sick when I go get on a ship for more than 20 minutes. And she gives a pretty good mom pep talk, like, I was afraid, and unsure when I was named the heir, but over the years I realized that, it's our duty to do this kind of stuff.
She channeled her inner Viserys there, I think.
If only she had done it more in the, decades leading up to this, we might not have a civil war on our hands, but...
Right. Who the hell is Sir Laurent Marbrand? Just a random sir that they had to just give us random sirs?
Was he the one who looked like the bald head?
He's the one that came in as like, hey, Rhaenys is here.
The bald head with the beard?
Yeah.
I would, the Kingsguard basically isn't just for the king, it's for the royal family, so the two that we see, him and what's the other guy's name? Sir Stefan Darklin.
Yeah.
Those are the Kingsguard assigned to Daemon and Rhaenyra.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so, basically, as we find out later, what's going to be the core of their white cloaks.
That makes sense. Okay.
So he comes in, and he says, Rhaenys is here. Correct?
Yes.
did Damon show up before that, or was he still?
Let's see. Rhaenys just arrived and wants to see Rhaenyra and Daemon. So I think Daemon's got to be there according to my notes.
Yeah, I thought it was like initially her talking to Luke, and then Daemon walked in. Like maybe Jace walked in, and then Daemon walked in. You know, like Jason, the girls walked in, and then Daemon walked in. You know, I thought they were all there when he announced that Rhaenys showed up.
That would make sense.
But again, it's been a couple days since the episode aired, so I don't remember for certain. So then we go to the scene where Rhaenys walks in, and if I remember correctly, most of the court was assembled. Correct? You know, so like their Meister, their knights, the two that we mentioned, whatever random nobles are hanging out on Dragonstone with them. And Rhaenys walks in and she's like, "Yo, shit got real in King's Landing. Your daddy died. Your stepmom / ex-bestie put your nephew or your uncle, your brother on the throne, and declared you guys traitors. So have fun, haha."
It's one of those weird things where you still think in your mind that I don't know. I guess Rhaenyra was mentally prepared for Viserys' impending death, but like there was like no moment of grieving. It was immediately like, well, shit. I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird that there was not like even 5 seconds of grieving.
What I love too is Daemon immediately goes to, "They fucking murdered my brother." It's like, I know it. They murdered him.
That's great.
And then he's like,
so
"Rhaenys, why didn't you breathe? Why didn't you say Dracarys like everybody wanted you to last episode?" And she's like, "Well, you know, it's not my job to start the war. The book would be too short if I did that."
Right, like, she's like, "Come on now, what's left of the story if I just, do this now? Do you just want one season?"
And all of their agents said, "No.
We need the money." And the baby's coming too.
Oh, Jesus, yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing some really awful things with women's bodies in these episodes.
They really, really are.
I mean, they should probably show episode 1 and then episode 10 to, an episode, what was episode 5? What's the one where she had,
I think it's 6.
They should show those 3 scenes from episodes in, like, high school,
health class?
Yeah, health class, and be like, "Okay, who wants to have a baby now?" Everybody be like, "I'll stick to condoms and no premarital sex, please."
I mean, can we go back to when Game of Thrones just showed lots of tits and ass? I mean, instead we're just getting all this horrific stuff to pregnant women.
Yeah, I would even be happy with dongs over, like, having to watch a live stillbirth.
Yeah, it's becoming uncomfortable at this point. I agree.
But, so we basically get the start of, like, the War Council, and then the baby begins to come, correct? In this scene.
Basically, yeah. One thing I found interesting, and you could shed a little bit more light on this, was Daemon said that he wanted to conscript the Dragon Keepers since they're capable fighters. Have we seen a single Dragon Keeper that looked remotely capable of being a fighter?
Well, we've only seen, maybe 6 in the entire both series?
Yeah, is there a shitload of these dudes?
I'd imagine there'd probably have to be at least a couple dozen.
Okay, so there should be some capable fighters among them. Okay.
I mean, I would assume that, like, learning to dance around, dragon flames would at least make you agile.
Fair enough.
And I would imagine that, yeah, exactly. Like if you have, fighting people off trying to steal the dragon eggs, although they didn't do a good job with Daemon. I would imagine, with they have like 13 and the other side has 4. So,
yes.
So there'd probably be at least, a couple of shifts, to stay awake, like, oh shit, crazy ass dragon's getting hungry at 2 a.m. Let's go grab him a goat before he fucking goes on a rampage kind of thing.
Yeah. I liked how Jace kind of grew a pair of balls here. Suddenly he's just like, yeah, leave Damon to me. It's like,
yeah.
My note exactly was, Jace, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna tell on you to Mom if you don't listen to me.
Right, like, dude, you're gonna say like his name, he's gonna look at you, and you're gonna run the fuck away, okay?
I mean, good on him for growing upset, but I mean, as soon as he shows up, Damon's like, yo, come with me.
Exactly.
Let me show you what did he say? Let me show you an example of true leadership or something like that?
Yeah.
So is this when we go to the Rhaenyra bedroom scene?
Let's see. We got Bartimos Celtigar telling Damon of a raven about Corlys's fever broken.
Okay.
Then he wants to get the nearest allies, Massey and Bar Eamon or Eamon, whatever. And Rhaenyra is calling for Damon, and he is just straight up like, "No, I'm planning a war here, lady."
He's like, "I'm finally in my element. I haven't been able to do this since episode 3."
Yeah. And yeah, that's I don't know. Yeah, then Damon's going to teach Jace about loyalty, and then they get the white cloaks outside, and all the pledging and all that stuff.
I mean, I thought that was a pretty good scene. If you are honorable men, you'll honor your oath that you made to, your king and to my wife, and treat her as the heir, the new queen, as she should be. And if you're not, I'll promise you a quick death. But if you betray us, you will learn pain.
Yes.
Whenever I get to scenes like that, I always think back to that scene from A Knight's Tale, where Alan Tudyk is like, "I will fong you as you have never been. Nobody has ever been fonged like this before." Hey, I have no idea what a fonging is in the first place, but it's just like he goes all in on that.
He really went all in, yes. And then, I mean, in the midst of all this, Rhaenyra is still going through labor and, like, literally, like, grabbing the baby.
She pulls the baby out of herself.
Yeah.
I'm like, if this chick learned sword fighting, she would cream the shit out of, like, every dude in this fucking series, because she is just suffered so much, like, reproductive system shock,
Yeah, I'm guessing that she's not having any more babies. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, it's probably true.
So, yeah, and yeah, that I mean, really, after that, stillborn and preparing the baby, and just this series really likes that theme.
Not only did I feel bad for her, but I felt really bad for, like, all of those maidservants who were like, "Please let us help," but you're not going to dismiss us, so we have to just stand here and watch you drop your stillborn baby on the floor.
Yeah, the awkwardness and everything was just weird, man. But I mean, they're doing the best they can to set Rhaenyra up as being toughest bitch out there, I suppose. Although I still feel Rhaenys is pretty damn tough in her own weird way.
Oh yeah, I mean, who the hell knows? They probably made her give birth in, like, seawater or something to Laena and Laenor.
Gosh, yes, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Yes. So yeah, after that we have Eric showing up.
Was this Eric or Arik?
Eric. Arik is back in King's Landing.
Okay, so Eric shows up in a really cool scene. You know, everybody's like, do we trust this bitch? This guy was working over in King's Landing. And then he pulls out the crown that apparently he stole from Viserys' body after the queen wrapped him up in his mummy shroud, and swears allegiance to Rhaenyra as the queen, and everybody else in the room does the same at that point.
Yeah, and everybody kneeled except for Rhaenys, and I loved everything that they did with Rhaenys this episode, because the whole time I'm sitting there like, what is her plan here? Like, I wasn't sure if she was all in, or like she felt like she was all in, but then she did these little things that gave me pause, I guess.
Well, to be fair, Rhaenyra wasn't all in for most of the episode.
This is true.
Yeah. Is it at this point that we get the coolest scene in the episode where they light the fire under the war table?
Yeah.
Dude, that was fucking
really,
awesome. I want one of those.
The illuminated, my note, the illuminated table map is awesome, because I didn't know what the hell the name of it was at that moment. So
yeah, that was pretty cool. They didn't have that in Game of Thrones, did they?
No, and that made me wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been something like Stannis would have been like, fire and war, my two favorite things.
Stannis would have just busted. He would have pulled an Aegon. He would have found the nearest window and just started jacking it.
Well, I mean, he would have had Melisandre do it for him out the window.
Oh, gosh, and then out would have came like some shadow liquid. Oh. I miss Stannis.
It would have just boinked over onto Gendry or something.
Now, here's something that made me kind of laugh, is like, I know it was intentional, but, I mean, really, they're like, well, we have 30 knights, 100 crossbowmen, and 300 men-at-arms. That's our military. Like, that is a pitiful-sounding military.
Yeah, I would imagine that's just, Dragonstone. Just what's on the garrison. Because that's not like a Winterfell or a Casterly Rock or even an Eyrie, where you have, a city and a community built up around it. I mean, Dragonstone is basically just a fortress on an island and the Dragon Pit.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I did not know that, but still, 30 knights, come on, you guys can do better than 30
Oh, yeah,
knights.
for sure. I mean, Jesus.
Based on the fact that this is where the heir to the Iron Throne is supposed to be, like, at all times, right? That's the general idea of Dragonstone?
Yeah, I mean, the idea was set up so, like, for example, if King's Landing comes under siege, you don't lose the king and his heir at the same time.
Right. So I guess I just expected more?
Well, my question at this point would be, like, Rhaenyra, what the fuck have you been doing for the last 10 years? Did you just sit in Dragonstone and boink Daemon and never do any politicking? Because, I mean, you're sitting around and your whole thing when you get going is to, let's hope all of our allies that we've been talking to in the past will still be our allies. I mean, you've known Otto is, like, campaigning against you since he's come back. So why have you sat around doing nothing?
She hasn't put a single sign up in her front yard.
No, and it's like
None.
Election Day's next week, and nobody knows which way she's fucking going.
Right. Yeah, she really... Yeah, it really is a good question. What the hell has she been doing?
I mean, this is, like, the writers are really good at, like, interpersonal character scenes, but they're kind of dropping the ball on, like, the overall picture. Like, Rhaenyra was schooled in, diplomacy and statecraft and learned a lot of the negatives from Otto, by watching him. So she wouldn't have just been sitting around passively for 10 years waiting for, people to usurp the kingdom from her.
Correct. That's just bad writing. And who the hell is Bar Amen? Like, why is he important? Why, like, his name got brought up like 3 or 4 times. Is he somebody remotely important?
Was he the Riverlands one?
Oh, maybe.
Because
I probably no Riverland. Wait, they already sent word to River Run and Lord Grover. Grover was the fickle one, and that's who Damon was going to go to. So I don't know.
All right, so it looks like the Bar Amens are just one of the families in the area. So
that's a name of a family. That's not the name of the dude.
Yeah, it looks like it because looking at the review I'm looking at, it says the Bar Amens, the Saltigars, and the Massies are the lords of the Blackwater Bay.
Okay.
And then the major lords are the Starks, the Baratheons, the Aarons, and the Tullys.
All right. Yeah, I have all these freaking names written down. I was trying to make sense of things, but I have Lord Boror Baratheon, which is a really fun thing to try to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we find out who the enemies were, because they were going through all right, who can we possibly get? All right, who's our enemies? The Lannisters, immediately.
Yeah, number one.
And what is west of the Golden Tooth? I don't know if I've ever heard the term Golden Tooth prior to this. Is it just a landmass?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. When they were showing the map, maybe it's just been a long time since I've read the books. And, I mean, it has been a long time since I read the books. But I kind of remember the map being in the opposite direction. But then it wouldn't make much sense when I think about, the end of Season 4 when Arya gets on the boat to go over to Pentos. I was figuring Pentos was to the east of King's Landing, which it is, but I was for some reason always thinking that the Eyrie was to the west, when I guess it's on the east and the King's Landing is on the. So I have no idea. I have no idea.
Fair enough.
It's been a while since I looked at one of the books, let alone a map.
Yeah, what the hell, Chris? You don't sit there and study the map an hour before we get on the air here to do this?
I don't even open up IMDb an hour before we get on air to do that.
I have IMDb open, but it's not for this show. It's for every other damn thing I've been looking at, so... yeah. Anyway, after that, we get a lot of dragon names. So... They say that the Greens only have 3. You said 4.
I thought they said 4. I thought they said 4.
They had 3.
Okay, so I guess they only have 3, but unfortunately for them, Vagar is one of them.
Right. So they have... Rhaenyra's group has Syrax, Caraxes, Meleys. So Syrax must be Rhaenyra's?
Yeah, Syrax was Rhaenyra's gold. Caraxes was Daemon's reddish one. And Meleys is... I guess he's red too.
Yeah.
Was Rhaenys.
The kids have Vermax, Arax, and Tyraxis. Bela has Moon Dancer, one hell of a name for.
Yeah, I was like, all of them sound like something out of Latin, and then you have Moon Dancer.
Moon Dancer, all of a sudden Moon Dancer. I was like, the fuck? But whatever.
Hold me closer, tiny Moon Dancer.
Yep, that happens. Damon mentioned that there's unclaimed dragons, Sea Smoke, another great name, and Driftmark, which, okay. Vermithor and Silverwing dwell on the Dragon Mount, or Mont, and then there's 3 wild dragons who nest with Rhaenyra's people. But then, just to cement what you said, and I specifically have this written, it says Dragonstone has 13 to their 4. So either I have a typo on the Greens having 3, or they said 3 and then they said 4 later.
Going the way the writing has been going, I'll say that they said 3 and then said 4 later. And even if that's not the case, it sounds cool for our purposes of our podcast. So.
Right, like my stupid detailed notes here. And they also have a bunch of eggs incubating in the. Is it Dragon Mont or Mount?
I think it's supposed to be Mount.
Okay, it's spelled Mont but pronounced Mount. That makes all the sense in the world to me. Also, immediately after Damon says he wants to set up a toehold in Harrenhal, and I have two questions. One, what the hell's a toehold? And two, why does anybody want to go to Harrenhal? Isn't that place cursed?
Well, I would assume that a toehold is something like a finger hold, but aimed more at like Larry's.
Okay, I was wondering if the toehold thing was a Laris.
I don't think it.
Like
I don't think it was a reference, but I think it just works out perfectly for the points of here in my discussion.
And isn't he the Lord of Harrenhal?
He is now. Yes.
So you ain't gonna get anything in Harrenhal if he's the Lord, right?
Well, he's probably never there because he's the the High Questioner or the High Inquisitor or whatever of the.
He's the Spanish Inquisition, okay?
Yeah, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, especially foot fetishists.
Right.
So I would assume it's just more strategically, because like being on Dragonstone, you basically have that one rocky path to get in or out by land. And at this point, they're still not sure if Corley's right. He hasn't shown up in the room yet.
No.
So they don't know whether or not they'll be able to count on the Valarian fleet to, and if they can't, then it'd be easy to blockade them in from sea. So Harrenhal would just give them a place where they could actually maneuver armies and stuff if their bannermen and allies come to fight. And, even though, it's not apparent, her kids should be the heirs to Harrenhal.
Right. Okay.
Damon knows it.
Right. Yeah, I liked in my notes here. I wrote, a ship has been sighted offshore. So immediately I get excited hoping that it's Westerling, and then immediately they're like, it's a 3-headed green dragon.
Yep. I don't know where Westerling's at. Maybe he's like, peace out, bitches. I'm gonna go. Bye.
I don't know, but he's been in so many episodes and yet has done so little. I need more Westerling.
I love the dude's got a great voice too. He does a lot of voice work for games and cartoons and shit.
Yeah, I was looking him up, and yeah, he does a lot. So after that, we get another meeting on this. I don't know. Is it a pathway? Is it a bridge? What the hell? I don't know what it is.
It's basically like both, kind of. Like a rocky, bridgy pathway up from the mainland to Dragonstone. And, this is another one of those times where they could have just, fucking probably ended the whole series,
Correct.
with one action, or at least significantly cut down on what's going on with one action.
Yeah, you take out Otto. King's Landing doesn't have the military strength.
It was Otto and Kristen, wasn't it? Yeah, he was there too. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we're showing up. We'll give you terms. Yeah, Aegon, your father on his deathbed, and is of course totally right mind. Not sick or drugged up or addled at all. Decided that he wanted Aegon, your brother, to be elected king. So we went and did it in a matter of hours. And we'll give you the choice, if you swear fealty and bend the knee, you can stay here and never leave, and your kids can be his squires, and yeah, sure, they won't be used as hostages or anything, and your kids will inherit Dragonstone and Driftmark, and everything will be happy. You just gotta swear obeisance to your younger brother.
Yeah.
That's after Rhaenyra lands... What is it, Caraxes?
Yeah,
Down
Syrax
down behind them, and it's like, I love how she just walks through like blithely, like, ha ha ha. Go ahead and touch her.
Yeah, no, I mean nobody's going to touch her at that point, except for Crispin. He was thinking about.
He really was. He was like, maybe if I smack her head down onto the railing hard enough, she'll pull a beesberry and just bleed out, and we won't have to deal with any of this stuff. And
yeah, we didn't have many random beheadings or head bludgeonings in this episode, and I feel let down.
Well, we did get something maybe better. Yeah, maybe better. A little less in your face.
Vaymon's death really is one of my favorite deaths ever, quite frankly.
He can keep his tongue.
Just by... Yeah, like, it happened so fast, and, like, the image, like, because you can still see the damn tongue. I don't know. It was great.
It really was. All right, so then we go to, basically... Rhaenyra, everybody's like, yeah, just fucking burn him, Dracarys. And she's like, you know what? I'll let you know tomorrow what my answer is going to be. And like Otto looks like so fucking relieved, like probably the most nervous he's been since Viserys took the hand from him. Although I love the fact that Rhaenyra takes the hand off of him and she's like, you do not deserve this.
Oh, that was one of my favorite things, was her just ripping the damn thing off, and then I was like, is he the hand anymore?
I bet, he's got like a whole drawer of backups after the first time he lost the position.
Yeah, he probably went, like, I need 15 of these made. Yeah, I can see him do that.
He's hilarious. When you limp over there, can you you grab me one of my backup hands out of the drawer?
Right. Also, Orwell was there. Orwell gets a lot of screen time and does absolutely nothing with it, but he's on screen quite a bit, I feel.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I would assume that somebody who stuck to his guns and tried to help the king would have, I don't know, maybe been a little more honorable than Orwell has shown himself to be, but hey, whatever.
I'd like to read this quote of, she can have her answer now, stuffed in her father's mouth along with his withered cock. Let's end this mummer's farce. I don't even know what a mummer's farce is, but I liked everything that was said there.
Mummers were also known as like jesters or actors, back in like a mummer's troupe would have been, like the people that would travel around to perform at like weddings and the midget lancers that Joffrey had.
Yeah. I also really liked how Damon's just like, bring Otto to me, and Eric's like, all right. Like, they were all in on just ending it right then and there, which once again kind of ends the series in its own way, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would have ended quite the same as it would have if, like, Rhaenys had burned the entire royal family. But you would have taken out a lot of, the political and military, aspirations that the other side had.
Yeah, just the intelligence aspect alone, you're losing so much, so... Yeah... And then,
so we
get the war room.
We get the war room again, and it's just about this point that everybody's. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody's like, "Aren't you gonna do something? We should strike first. We have the dragons." And Rhaenyra's like, the queen's job is to hold the realm together, not to split it apart in civil war.
Well, not only that, she's like, she doesn't want to rule over a kingdom of ash and bone. So, that is something that, I think we discussed this way back when Daenerys went batshit crazy. Like, like, you need to actually have people to rule, or there's no point in being a ruler.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're basically seeing, like, the end of the, like, sane Targaryens, basically, through this series.
Yeah.
Is this next part where we get the Daemon Rhaenyra thing, or is this when Corlys shows up?
So, yeah, she asks Daemon if he could win the throne without putting Otto's head on a spike, would he? Which I enjoyed that question. and then Song of Ice and Fire. Then we get the freaking choke that I did not expect him to just choke a bitch.
Yeah, shit was going left and right in this episode.
It actually seemed kind of out of character for Damon to do that, despite Damon being so chaotic. I don't know, it did feel out of character.
Well,
to me,
so I read an interview with the showrunner where they were talking about this scene, and they were like, it just shows that Damon always assumed that he was Viserys', heir, and then never getting this passed on to him would have pissed him off, and shown that, he wasn't ever, seriously considered Viserys' heir in the first place. And I wanted to be like, well, why would his first reaction be to choke her when he doesn't even know what the fuck she's talking about?
Thank you. Yeah, he had no idea about the story, so it's almost like they did that in reverse order.
Yeah, like what they should have happened if they wanted to do that would have been, she's like, the Song of Ice and Fire, and he'd be like, what the fuck's the Song of Ice and Fire? And then she said, it's the whole reason that Aegon the Conqueror decided he had to be king, and blah, blah, blah. We have a duty, to see one of us on the throne to save the world from whatever the danger in the north is. And, it's been passed on to the heirs, the people we need to know. And then Damon should have choked her, and it would have made sense instead of vice versa. He chokes her, and then she explains what's going on, and he's like, and even then, I mean, like, if she had really pushed the auto thing, I could have seen that, being, a confrontational thing. Like, Damon wants to do what Damon wants to do. But, he's been happily subserving himself to her for what, 10 years at this point?
Yeah,
6 years, something like that, so.
He's never seemed like cross towards her since they started hooking up, so it was just a really out of character thing without anything before it to lead him that way. They needed a scene or something to get him that pissed off. I don't know. They needed something extra,
and we didn't get it. I would completely agree with you on that one, Kent. We did not get what we should have for the context of the scene to make sense.
Right. But on the plus side, we get Corlys next.
Yeah, I want to just, it almost feels too like a wake-up call for Rhaenyra, though. Like, do you think she ever really believed that he killed his ex-wife?
That's a hell of a question.
But I could definitely see her believing it after, that outburst.
Yeah, now, prior, I don't know. She knows that he had a devilish way about him, so I don't know.
I mean, the other thing that it brings up is, like, probably I would say up until this point, she hasn't really ever had to, worry about, is Daemon going to obey my orders? But now I definitely, I have a feeling that, that's in her mind too, Even if I want to try to work out a peaceful thing with Alicent, is Daemon going to abide by this, or is he going to thrust us into war himself?
Right. And now I'm thinking, we never got to see one scene. I mean, I know it was unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but after they built it up in episode 5 where Daemon was going to talk to whoever at the Vale, like, I really wanted to see that scene play out, and we never got to see it.
Well, we still might get to see it because the Vale is one of the, even though the ruler of the Vale is Rhaenyra's aunt, when they go to sue for them to join them, now they're going to have to deal with the fact that, you've got blood ties to one, and then the other one was accused of murdering, your cousin, so.
Okay, so eventually we might be able to get something.
Maybe season 2.
Okay, fair enough.
So then we get Corlys showing up, and like we already discussed, like this guy looks way better health for somebody who was, bedridden and dying 2 episodes.
They overhyped his health condition and then showed this. I was expecting a wheelchair. I don't know if wheelchairs were a thing. Probably not. Wait, were they?
Bran had one. I mean, this is a couple hundred years before Bran, but I would assume that they probably would have had the whole idea going.
I mean, they had wheels, they had wagons, so I see no reason why they wouldn't have a wheelchair. So, yeah, like a wheelchair would have been, I don't know, I just expected him being like 10% of what he actually shown. That's what I expected.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, literally, this guy's sickness kicked off the whole fucking war, basically.
Right. I don't know. It was kind of maddening. I mean, I'm happy for him. I wish he would have been bitching about his haul, but we didn't get that either.
So, do we go to the scene with him and Rainey's first, or do we go to the scene with? I mean, I know
him and Rainey's
okay,
first.
that's what I've kind of remember. I'm glad I'm mostly remembering this correctly. So he's finally like, "Yo, what happened?" She's like, "Yo, your brother tried to fucking take over Driftmark, and he straight up called Rhaenyra's kids bastards to Viserys' face, and then Daemon cut his head off. I needed you. Where the fuck were you for the last 6 years?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's my fault. I dreamed too big. Reached too far. Let's just take the kids and go." And Rhaenys is like, "You can't do that now. Like, the kids are going to be fucking targets as long as Aegon sits on the throne. No matter where we go, the High Towers are going to fucking come after us." Which I guess kind of shows where Rhaenys' head has been all episode, but she hasn't been showing it in like the glances and the faces that she's been making.
This was the big reveal for her character, because up to that point, you really didn't know where she was. So,
yeah, for sure.
It was despite it being Corlys's return scene, this was just as much about Rhaenys as it was about him, if not more.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, she's literally like, "You fucking abandoned me for 6 years. Our son died, our daughter died. I needed you. You took off to go play soldier. You got injured. Yeah, every time I needed you to back me up, you were gone."
Oh, quick question. There was the line, "The stranger cast a long shadow over this family." What, or who is the stranger?
The stranger's one of the seven. He's like, without being quite as antagonistic, like their version of the devil.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember all of them, but I do remember that he's like the one who changes his face, and he's kind of like a trickster, and inviting the stranger to dinner is inviting trouble to your table kind of thing, that kind of saying.
Okay.
So basically, he's just brought, the gods have brought bad luck down on their house, is what she's saying.
Gotcha. I also liked, right at the end of the conversation, Rhaenys saying that Rhaenyra was like the only one showing any restraint and preventing a full-out chaotic war. Like, that was probably the most common sense thing that anybody said the whole damn episode.
Yes. For a time.
Yes, for a time. And then we get to go back to the painted table.
And we go back to the painted table, and Corlys is there this time. And I forgot if the order is correct, but basically he pledges for himself to Rhaenyra at the beginning, doesn't he? She greets him, and there's a little back and forth, and then he says, "I got your back." And we're...
basically, he first kind of like, you don't have enough support to win a war right now, which I think was important.
Yeah.
Because everybody kind of knew it, but aside from maybe Daemon, nobody was really saying it.
Yep. And then, after he brings it up and declares himself for her, he says, "Well, at least this time, my time in the Stepstones wasn't worthless, because we kicked the shit out of the Triarchy, kicked them out of the Stepstones. I actually remembered to garrison it this time instead of forgetting to hit that save end of turn button."
That cracked me up, actually. That whole thing was great.
And he's like, "We have complete and total control of the inner sea now, and the largest fleets in the world are at your disposal."
Yep, so now they can cut off travel and trade to King's Landing. And Rhaenys is like, "Yeah, I'm just going to take Melissa and I'm going to patrol it myself. Nobody's going to fuck with that." It's like,
yeah.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah, she fucking was baller this episode, that's for sure. I would say the last two episodes, actually.
Yeah, she's been the MVP of the past two episodes. In good for her. Now, are we never hearing about this stupid triarchy again? Because they early on the triarchy seemed like, oh, maybe there'll be something cool, sort of like the crab feeder. But you know what? The triarchy has been utterly worthless. Am I to assume that they're just utterly worthless and we don't ever have to hear about them again?
I don't remember if they were still a thing in Game of Thrones, but if they were, I mean, most of that would have been replaced by the Iron Bank. Basically, I think they were basically the predecessor to the Iron Bank. Like, I think the triarchy was the banking, shipping, and slavery. You know, those three businesses basically aligned.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we find out Jace is going to travel north to the Vale and meet Lady Jane, which every time I hear Lady Jane, all I can think of is G.I. Joe.
Lady J, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because Jace has got to go to see Lady Jane Eyre, and then he's got to go to Winterfell to meet Lord Cregan Stark. Luke, he's just got the easy one. He just has to travel south to Storm's End and meet Boror.
Well, you know, it seems easier.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sticking by what I just said.
Well, I mean, if I had a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, I'd probably send the 14-year-old to do, and I had to split them to do two things. I would send, you know, the older one to do the two and the younger one to do the one. Although, let me ask you this. When they take off, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 dragons take off.
Yes.
It was Bela?
Was one Rhaenys by chance?
I thought one was one of the girls. So it's like, where are they? Or it's like, is she going with Luke? With Jace? I was like, but
maybe Moondancer is.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was Melis, and Rhaenys was heading off to start her patrol. She's like, fuck you, Corlys. Peace out, bitches.
Even with before I knew the impending idea of what was happening, because assumptions could be made. I was just thinking, like, how feasibly, why not send? I don't know, Rhaenys maybe, and keep the boys together as a duo. I don't know. I wouldn't have sent a 12-year-old on, or a 14-year-old for that matter. I wouldn't have sent either of them alone. I guess is my point.
I wouldn't have sent either of my heirs alone, especially when one is the heir to the throne and one is the heir to Driftmark. With nothing other than you promise to honor your allegiances. I'm sorry I haven't talked to you in like the last 12 years, but I'm hoping that you're going to be honorable. With no room to really negotiate, nothing to, like, you're up against a fucking wall at this point, and you know it, and you're not like wiggling to try to get out from being in front of the bullseye.
To me, it would have made more sense. And I understand Daemon was sent to do his own thing, but I was sent Daemon and Rhaenys out as the older, more well-spoken people to have these conversations, or maybe have Daemon with Jason, Rhaenys with Luke. Something I would have done something other than just sending out a 14-year-old to do 2 tasks and a 12-year-old to do 1 task. I just wanted.
Yeah,
it made no sense.
I agree.
It was plot armor?
Well, no.
Lack thereof?
Lack thereof. So, I know at some point, I think we've already passed it by, Daemon's in the dark singing to one of the dragons in High Valyrian.
Well, that actually, so Rhaenyra tells her boys that they are going as messengers, not as warriors, and then we get the Daemon underground singing in Old Valyrian.
Was that his dragon, or was that another dragon? No,
this is a big beast that could be as big as Vhagar. This is Vermithor.
Okay. So yeah, I have no idea what that scene was fucking about.
I think, well, because they said that there was all those wild dragons and Vermithor was one. But here's the stupid thing. is that Vermithor was listed as being with another dragon, but yet they only showed us Vermithor. Why not do the other dragon that was supposed to be by itself? I didn't understand why you showed just one dragon, but you picked the dragon that was paired up with another dragon.
I don't know. Budget.
Just have him go to the solo dragon. But either way, Vermithor looks like he's going to be a complete and utter badass. Like, he looks huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still think he's not... Vagar's the biggest. She's the biggest. The only one that was equivalent to her size was the one whose skull is underneath the Iron Keep.
Gotcha.
That was her mate, and she's actually probably, I think at this point too, the oldest living thing on the planet. She
with Viserys dead.
Well, she survived from old Valyria, so she was one of the ones that, like, Aegon... I think she was the one that Aegon's sister wife rode. Well, he rode Balerion the Black, the one whose skull is underneath the throne. Or underneath the keep.
And it makes me wonder, just to go back in time, how did they let Aemon just take it? Like, damn, that made no sense how they just, like... I mean, yes, I understand that they had to have him have it, but from a practicality standpoint, they just, like, let him have it.
I mean, what are they going to do? It's not like you can force the dragon to bond with somebody.
Yes, you can. You offer it some marshmallows.
Okay, Puff.
That's right.
So we go from the singing. Is this when we actually get the first shot we've seen ever of Storm's Landing?
Storm's End.
Storm's End. So I thought that was cool. Like, it's someplace that hasn't really ever been talked up, like, say, as much as Casterly Rock. But, yeah, I mean, this was the place that Robert was from. We've never really been to the Stormlands in either show. And so we get the first shot, and it's pretty cool, looking like Castle out on a promontory.
It looks like it sounds.
Yeah. Storm's End. So Lucerys lands his little mini dragon in the courtyard. And he's like, I'm here to entreat with Lord Boros. What the hell's his last name?
Boros. Shit, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Someplace else.
Robert Baratheon. And the guards are like, yes, we'll take you. And then you see a lightning shot in the background, and you just see Vagar, like, looming up bigger than the fucking castle. And you're like, oh, shit. And, like, if I'd been Luke, I'd been like, you know what? Here, you give this to Boros. I'm going to go take off. I'll see you later.
Yeah, like, as soon as I saw Vagar, I'm like, no, just get the fuck away. Like, you got a little bit of a head start. Go.
I mean, especially considering the fact that, like, you're the dude that cut your uncle's eye out.
Like, you know that he hates your guts, quintessentially. And so you know he's there, and you're just there as a messenger. Like, you can just deliver the message and get the fuck out. Like, once again, this is why you don't send a boy to do a man's job.
Well, I mean, I get that you think that you're going to have, diplomatic immunity, but, you never trust that shit when war's going on, especially in Westeros.
Hell no. No.
So he goes in, and we see Boros on his throne, and Aemon's already there. And he gives them the message, and Boros is like, what, were you getting the idea that, like, he was either nearsight, or was it that, like, he can't read, and so he has to have the Maester read it to him?
He can't read. That was what I got.
Okay, yeah. So apparently the Lords of Westeros and Robert's family have always been kind of fucking stupid.
They're hunters, not readers. They're not really good hunters either, but they're hunters.
I mean,
What the hell can you hunt in Storm's End? Like, hunting season must be awful there.
Like, I go hunting for lightning bolts. Once in a while they hit me, but I hit them back with my hammer.
It ricochets off my hammer. Yeah, that all makes sense to me.
So he's like, what the fuck? Are you stupid, kid? He's like, At least your uncle came here and said he's going to marry one of, one of Aegon's kids are going to marry my daughter. Like, are you going to marry one of my daughters? And he's like, I can't. I'm already betrothed. And he's like, so you came in to ask me to bend allegiance to somebody who has no allies, and you're not offering me anything other than a fucking chance to fight on the losing side in a war. He's like,
yeah.
And Luke's like,
and 2 of his daughters out of the 3 were actually quite attractive.
And Luke's like, at that point, he's like, I'm going to go now. Bye.
Yeah. Luke, I mean, you know what? If I'm Luke, maybe just be like, yeah, I'll plow one of those girls. Why not? I don't know. You got to give him something in that moment to, like, what an imbecile move.
I would have been like, well, I got a younger brother named Joffrey. we can marry him off. He's not married to anybody yet.
Joffrey or Viserys?
Joffrey, Viserys, and Aegon. All 3 of them.
Yeah, you had those bargaining chips. At that point, you say, you know what? They're free. Let's make a deal here.
But it doesn't, and he goes to leave, and Aemon stops him, and he's like, yo, bitch, I'm not going to kill you, but cut your fuck...
Wait, Lord Strong, was his words.
Cut your fucking eye out for me. Cut your uncle eye out, uncle fucker.
Yeah, it was just like, hey, can you just grab this knife and just cut your eye out for me? Thanks.
And did he have like a gem in his eye socket?
Yeah, I think so, because...
Like a sapphire or something? Yeah.
Yeah. Looked pretty awesome.
And at this point, we finally get Boros being like, yo, no, what? No, you can't mutilate your nephew when he's an emissary to me. You can wait till you guys, get outside of Storm's End to do that kind of shit.
Right. He was pretty funny, actually. In all fairness, I thought Boros, like, in his limited screen time, was really funny for me.
He was, I mean, he wasn't wrong. Coming from where he's standing, yes, his father pledged to them, but, obviously Rhaenyra never went to him after his father died and was like, hey, you're going to honor your dad's, agreements, his words, it's all on her, that failure.
Yeah, 100%.
So we get a long scene now of Jace flying away on his little mini dragon through the storm, and then Aemon snapping out of there and showing up on Vhagar, chasing him. And I guess this is one of the changes between the book and the show. And I think stuff like this works, where it's pretty apparent for the most part from Aemon's expression and what he's doing is that he's just chasing Luke to fuck with him, just to scare him. He's not intentionally going out of his way to, like, murder him.
Right.
And Luke disappears for a while. He goes down into, like, a little canyon that Vhagar can't follow him in. And then when he...
The visual, by the way, of Vhagar, just, like, the shadow, was awesome.
Yeah, they did a really good job with this. You can tell that a lot of this season's budget went for this scene.
Because it looked really, really, really good. Yeah.
And then when Luke reappears, his little dragon is disobeying him and breathes fire into Vhagar's face. And after that, it's on. Like, Vhagar's just completely ignoring Aemon. And so Luke ends up climbing up above the clouds because they were in the storm, and he's flying around not too far out of the cloud. And then all of a sudden, Vhagar just comes fucking flying out of the clouds and bites him once and just completely kills Luke and his dragon. And when he spits them out, they're in like 6 pieces falling. So
yeah, that was an RKO out of me.
I will say this: I owe you for last week. I ate crow because I said I didn't think we would see any significant deaths, and I guess Luke is significant enough within that cast of the show to be considered that. So,
I mean, what's Driftmark going to do now?
I don't make, just a girl there, since, they've already done that for the throne.
Yeah, that makes some sense, I guess.
I don't know. I have no... Maybe Rhaenyra will be like, Laener's not really dead.
That's true. I mean, make him and, God, I can't even remember...
Carl Corey.
Coral. Yeah.
And, like, probably some of the best acting that we've seen from Aemon this season so far is, like, when he realizes what he's done. And one of the reviewers that I watched was like, it's like, hey, the wall? Are you still accepting applications? Okay, I'm on my way.
That was such... it was a series of uh-ohs. Like, the past 5 to 10 minutes was just... Every minute there was a whole other scenario of uh-oh. It was great.
Yeah, it was a good scene, but like we said, it really wasn't enough. Especially for what we get after it.
Yeah, let's just get to it. I mean, because there's not much left.
Aemon's face basically realizes that, oh shit, I started the war. And then all we basically get, what's left, is Daemon walking into the war room and pulling Rhaenyra aside and letting her know that, hey, Luke's dead, his dragon was killed, Aemon murdered them. And all we get is, it ends on a shot of Rhaenyra's face looking like she bear mama, like getting ready to, like, go crazy on the people who are attacking her cubs.
Hulk smash.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So basically what she was saying about not wanting to rule over a kingdom of ashes has just gone out the drain with her son's death. I mean...
meaningless.
And not only that, but I mean...
Really?
Two sons' meaningless deaths within, like, what, a day?
Yeah. So she lost what? A third of her children, basically. Because she still has 4 left?
Yeah, that would have been 6. So.
Right, okay. Yeah, so she's lost a third of her children in about a 24-hour period, and probably the baby wouldn't have been stillborn if not all the stress, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like what it was kind of implying to me.
And obviously, Luke certainly didn't need to die, but in all fairness, I know she's not thinking about it, but some of that blame has to go on her.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we've already mentioned what we needed to mention in regards to that. Like, sending him out and not giving him the authorization to, be a diplomat, while sending him on a diplomat's mission and whatnot. But...
Was Luke wearing a red shirt? I believe he was.
Maybe. I mean, are you implying, like, that he was a red shirt?
Maybe. It felt right if he was wearing a red shirt, and I think he was. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, so I guess one thing that we get just about, through what they're trying to show at the end too, is that, like, nobody actually controls the dragons, for as much as they want to pretend that they do.
Yeah, I did find that interesting that both Luke and Aemon were trying to be in control, but man, that dumb little dragon, Arax, it was just like a little yipping dog. And
it was like a Chihuahua attacking a Great Dane, basically.
Yeah, and the Great Dane's just like, all right, I've had enough of your nonsense, and boom. It was a cool scene, but yeah, I mean, not to beat the dead horse or the dead dragon or the dead child, but we just needed something. Like, that was an okay point. It's just we needed something else in addition. I don't know.
Yeah.
A beheading, perhaps?
I mean, like, even just a line after that probably would have been enough. Something badass to let us know what's coming, but we don't. I mean, it's... And the look was powerful. Like you said, she was able to convey a lot in that look, but they really just dropped the ball at the ending. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt very underwhelmed, and that's how this season's going to be for me. Is that the last two episodes underwhelmed? Honestly, if they would have ended this season with season 8 with Viserys' death,
Yeah, that would have been.
and then just opened it up with these two episodes, that would have actually worked better.
I agree. And if they had done that, they could have fleshed out a little more of like the questions we had between the time jumps.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the plot is there. The pacing just hasn't been there for a good chunk of this season, and I know a lot of it had to do with time jumps, but there's just so many open-ended things that they put out there, and then it just kind of goes nowhere, and we have a time jump, and we're not going to go back in time to get any answers. Okay, cool. I guess.
All right, so I mean, this is not a bad episode, but it's definitely not one of the stronger episodes for the season. I think we would be agreeing that 5, 6, 5, 7, 8 probably were the best.
Yes, 5, 7, 8 were by far the best. These past, I mean, this one has a rating right now of a 9.3 on IMDb, and under no circumstances would I have it that high.
All right, so how would you rate the episodes?
I still really liked episode 5. So episode 5 is probably my favorite, followed by, I don't know, 7 or 8 in one way or the other. Beyond that, maybe like episode 1 I really liked. Episode 1 or 2 were both good in their own ways. And then these last two come in somewhere. There was episode 6 and I think episode 4 were probably the two weakest.
See, I would say 3 was probably the weakest for me.
Wait, which one's
3 is the battle with the crab feeder.
Oh God. Okay, so which one was 4 then?
4 was the one where it starts with Rhaenyra going through the search for the suitors, and
Okay.
I believe it was the one with where Daemon takes her to the brothel.
Okay, so yeah, I had 3 and 4 mixed up. So 3 was probably the weakest, followed by 6, and then these last two are somewhere like in the middle or like in the 4 or 5
Yeah,
range.
I would say probably for me, going from the bottom up, it would go 3, 6, 9, 10, 2, 1, 5, 7, 8, 7,
enough.
5, 8, something like that.
Yeah. 5 is probably my favorite just because there were so many awesome looks in it. Yeah. 7 was the one where we had the eye, right?
The
Losing the eye?
Yeah, the kids fight and the Alicent
That one's so good.
Alicent stabbing Rhaenyra.
5, 7, 8. I mean, you could put them in any order and I'm not going to be angry about it, I don't think.
So, okay, overall, how would you rate the whole season?
It's probably like, if I had to go the whole, with the highs and lows, I'm going to just go with like a high 6, low 7. Well, just say a 7. Just
Off of
it's not an 8.
your scale, or
Yeah, off of my scale, I'd offer it a high 6.
okay, yeah, I would say it's for me. It's probably like an 8.
Okay.
You know, not giving that. Very rarely does anything go below like a 5. So
Yeah.
it was good. It was pretty good. It rekindled my interest in Game of Thrones. And I like, for example, like one of the changes between the book and the show, it was in the book, it's written that Aemon malevolently just went after and murdered Lucerys. And here, if this is potentially trying to be closer to, what actually happened, it's a fucking teenager making a mistake and accidentally murdering his nephew that he was just trying to fuck with.
Yeah.
Same thing like with Alicent. In the book it's written that she just decides to install Aegon on the throne when Viserys dies, and here, they're showing that, she mistakenly believed that he was giving her, free reign to go ahead and do just that. So little changes like that, especially because it was written, this book was written as a historical book by a monk writing hundreds of years later, not having actually lived through the events. And, interesting twists on it compared to like Game of Thrones, which even though it's a novel, it's written as, this is the story. This is what's happening to the people as it's happening.
Now, how do you feel Otto, Alicent, and Aegon? How do you feel those three reactions are going to be about what Aemon just did? Because I imagine that they're not all going to have the same reaction, obviously.
You know what? I don't know. I imagine Otto's going to be proud, because in that one action, even though you started the war, he's ready for the war, and you took out a dragon and the heir to Driftmark, and if Jaehaerys dies, the second heir to the throne, after Aegon. Aegon, I imagine, would be kind of butthurt because his little brother's already showing him up on, like day one of his kingship. And Alicent, I imagine, is going to be upset because, even though she's ready to go to war, she was trying to sue for peace and give Rhaenyra the option to, come back into the fold, as it were.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the big things we see in the season premiere is those three reactions.
All right, so here's a little mind exercise for you. If Rhaenyra had torched Kristen and Otto, who do you think they would have installed as the hand and the head of the White Cloaks to replace them?
I don't know. I'm guessing hand. I could see possibly her going with Rhaenys. That would have been an interesting hand choice.
Well, Alicent.
Oh, yes. Alicent. Oh yeah. Gosh, Larys would have had to been head of the White Cloaks, obviously, because he makes all of his cloaks white. Really, I don't. Who the hell is left? Like, do we know of any? I guess Arik would have been head of White Cloak, and Larys would have been hand.
See, like, the only other thing I could think of is that she would have tried to make herself hand, but then Larys would probably be like, "Hey, you know how I told you that you owe me? Why don't you break out those nice little toesies for me?
Yeah.
Take my foot. It's my strong foot."
Could she have been? I guess you can make your parent the hand. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, Cersei did. Well, okay. I guess, she did technically until her dad showed up, and then he was like, "Yep, sorry, bitch."
Tywin was so good. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel that whole thing just crumbles immediately if Rhaenyra set that on fire.
Well, part of it, too, is, from what I understand, from what I've read from the books, is that, like, a lot of what happens is because of Kristen having so much animosity and basically being put in charge of the armies. So, like, he and Aemon basically go on, like, a warpath,
That makes sense to me because Crispin has just been a whiny, douchey, every other name I could think of since.
If you take that personal animosity out, like, do you have somebody who? I mean, you might have somebody who's just as good a warrior and just as good as a general, but they don't have any reason to prosecute the war, as savagely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of curious how and when Crispin dies, because, I mean, that's definitely something we're going to have to get in this series. Is that something you actually know?
All right, let me. How much do you want to know?
You can let me know how Crispin dies.
I don't know how he dies. What I do know is that everybody who was on that stage that Rhaenys was looking at,
yes,
everyone who's on that stage dies.
Oh, poor Helena. Everybody else, I'm okay with.
I mean, yeah, basically, like 95% of the people that we've met don't die in old age or in their beds.
Right, like people are just going to keep. I'm assuming that one side gets the upper hand a little bit, then the other side gets the upper hand, etc., etc. Daemon certainly ain't going to make it to the end of this franchise, I don't think. I don't even know who I can picture making it to the end of the franchise, the end of the series. I really don't know.
I mean, all I'll say is this. Aegon is followed by Aegon as king.
Right.
So,
yeah.
The baby who has not even spoken a word yet, survives.
Is he younger than Viserys?
I don't. I think Viserys is younger. So he's younger than Joffrey, but I think he's older than Viserys.
Alright, so basically Jace and Joffrey are going to have a bad time. Rhaenyra's clearly going to have a bad time. Daemon's going to have a bad time. All of that makes sense to me. And I'm okay with it. As long as Daemon, here's, I do have a concern. Given the way the story's going to go, is Daemon going to have room to be the loose cannon that he was, that we enjoyed so much in season 1, or is he going to have to be, quote unquote, more responsible in some way?
I think he gets more responsible, if I remember correctly, because I know how Daemon dies, and it's going out as the good dad kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. And I mean, I can't imagine. Oh, well, hell, I'm surprised Corlys actually survived this whole season, so I can't imagine him surviving next season, but...
I mean, let's put it like this. In Game of Thrones, did we hear anybody named Valerian or of a place called Driftmark?
Nay. So, good stuff. Now, I asked in the blog, and I haven't read...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't. I've been busy hanging out with family this week, so I haven't had a chance to respond. I was going to do that tonight. So, yeah, I have no idea what questions you asked, but please.
Well, one of the questions I did ask was could this have possibly been the beginning of the Baratheon-Targaryen rivalry feud where the Baratheons just don't like Targaryens? Was this the first bad blood?
I would assume that it probably wouldn't be this. It would be whatever repercussions follow in season 2.
Okay.
But I mean, most of the stuff that Robert was pissed about stemmed from whatever, I forgot what the hell the king's name was, the mad one.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
Because he killed Ned and Robert's parents. He killed Ned's older brother, or had them executed. And then, for Robert, the last straw was being in love with Lyanna and having, Rhaegar kidnap her. And then her dying from it. That was literally what caused the rebellion. Well, him to actually actively rebel.
Ares.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking Varys, and I'm like, no, the king wasn't a spider or a eunuch, so I don't.
Right. All right. Now, does everybody basically pledge one way or the other. I'm assuming in like season 2 or like at some point everybody kind of pledges one side or the other. Right?
I mean, I'm assuming it depends on the time jumps that we get next season.
Oh gosh.
Because think of it like this: like by the end of the season, the series, we have to have gone probably at least like another 14 years forward. Because I think Aegon's about 2 now, and he's going to be 16 when he takes the throne. So,
Oh, wow.
So we have, I think they said they want to do between 4 and 5 seasons. So we have 14 more years to go in 3 seasons.
All right. That's.
But I mean,
I'm cautiously optimistic.
They said we're gonna meet, like Alicent's other son next season. They've stated that, the one who's over in Old Town studying. So I'll be interested to see who else we meet. Like I'm assuming we're going to at least see, the Tullys, the Aarons, the Starks, because they're just too large families to not be into it. Obviously, we're going to get something going on with Dorne because they're not part of the kingdoms yet.
Dorne!
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about Dorne in a while.
And I don't know if this is when, like, whatever happens in the South is what causes the Tyrells to be able to take over as the house in the South.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Tyrells. Wow.
But I mean, the wall is there, but they haven't really mentioned. So I'm wondering if we're going to see anything to do at all with the wall. Same thing with like the Iron Islands. They mentioned the Greyjoys, but we haven't heard anything about them. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. I try not to just to look into anything more than what I already know. So I'm not actively searching out anything for this. So it's nice to be able to watch something from the perspective of just learning for the most part as I'm watching it.
Have they basically always tried like making the Starks into the quote unquote honorable good guys?
I mean, yes. I mean, like, I guess it's just part of their character. Like, I mean, as she says in this episode, there's never been a Stark who would go back on what the hell did she say? An alliance, an agreement, something that they've made.
Some kind of oath.
An oath. Thank you.
So, all right. Well, I mean, realistically, we're looking at what 2024 before this be back.
I mean,
right?
if this is airing, August, October, probably 15 to 18 month turnaround. So probably somewhere like March, April, maybe June at the latest of 2024.
All right. I hate waiting that long, but I understand it because they're practically making like actual full budget films. They're making quintessentially 5 full budget films.
I mean, when you think about it like that, the fucking turnaround's amazing for some of these shows.
It really is, yeah. Just because of the money and the scale of everything and the effects and everything, it really is impressive. And I guess in some ways I feel like an ass when I do bitch about, oh, well, that dragon just didn't look quite right. Like, the effects don't always look so good. But when you consider the turnaround...
Well, I would really be interested in getting your opinion just on, like... I wouldn't want to do anything about the whole series, but, like, I would like to know what you think of, like, if you watch The Rings of Power, and then you watch this, and you realize that they spent, like, double the money on The Rings of Power that they did on this. And, I mean, there are times that you can see the money that they put on the screen, but there are other times I'm like, this is looking like just as good, or maybe only a little bit better than, the Peter Jackson trilogy that he filmed 20 years ago for 1/10 of the budget for 3 movies over the course of 1 season of a show that you're doing.
It is the Power Ring or whatever, is that done yet, or are they still...
that ended the week before this one did.
All right. Now, how much of the Do I need to know shit about Hobbit? What do I need to know to enjoy the show?
I mean, I would say it would probably be better going in blind, because like most of my problems have been the shit that they're changing.
Oh, okay, that's perfect, because I really was like, oh god, I have to
I'm not saying
first.
that this is like a show that I would recommend, but I would be interested in hearing, your opinions.
Okay.
I mean, let me put it like this: it is not a bad show, but for the amount of money that they, for this being the most expensive season of television ever made, it should have been way better.
Fair enough. It's always interesting to look back on, like, a show, or especially a movie that like set a standard so high that a decade later, for example, things are still getting compared. Like Terminator 2 was like the benchmark, and I think Independence Day for a while was a benchmark. You know
Matrix.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Matrix, yeah, that's a good example. Actually, I can't think of any recent examples of some that really like...
I mean, you're probably talking about like Avatar and all. Like, I mean, the last one that...
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of it, but I mean, the way they did 3D was definitely, just groundbreaking.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it, but yeah, visually it was visually stunning, yeah. So, yeah. All right. With that being said, can I talk about Barbarian?
Yeah, I know. Was there anything else that you watched between last week and this?
Nah.
Okay, just Barbarian.
Okay, so I've watched a lot of stuff, but a lot of it has been just stuff to keep my mind occupied. Like, I rewatched Creepshow 1 and 2. I watched Trick or Treat, Babadook. A bunch of shit that I've already watched that just... I wanted something to put me in a good mood while I was feeling like shit. But then I turned on HBO. I don't even know why. And all of a sudden I see Barbarian. I was like, holy shit. I got super excited. And I'm not going to ruin it by any means.
I already know what the twist is, but... So please, yeah.
Oh, okay. What I really, really, really liked is how the pacing was early on, because, horror fans know who Bill Skarsgård is, so... Is he the bad guy early on? And like the way they keep painting it, it makes you wonder. And then we go into like typical final girl making stupid decision after stupid decision after stupid decision. Then we get like this whole other story of Justin Long. And then my favorite aspect of it, though, is that Richard Brake is in it. And, you know how much I love Richard Brake.
He is just... Dude does a really good job of just being creepy. Yeah, and whatever. He's like Julian Richings in that regard for me. And like whatever I see them in, even if it's a non-horror thing, they're just fucking creepy no matter what.
I would go the same with somebody like Tobin Bell has his own like presence, and Robert Englund has his own presence that is kind of inescapable. And Tobin Bell is coming back for the next Saw movie, which I don't even know.
You know what? I hope it's good, because it's being done by the guy who did Saw 6, and I thought that was an interesting, maybe not the best, but an interesting take for the series. By the 6th entry.
Sure. Yeah, it went a little different, and I have no optimism. I'm going into it just saying I'm happy there's another Saw movie, but if it's good, great. If it's mediocre, I accept it at this point. But to go back to Barbarian, one of the things I really loved, and I don't know if you know the song that they play at the end, but it was perfect.
What song do they play at the end?
Be My Baby by the Shirelles.
Well, I do know that song, yes.
Yeah, it was such a perfect song, and it's weird. I like Justin Long in most everything. The worst thing I ever saw Justin Long in was Tusk, and I still can't forgive that movie for existing.
I mean, the only real question is man a walrus?
Right. And God damn it. I even rewatched Tusk earlier this year. Just like one night I was tired. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this movie a second shot. No, it just wasn't for me.
I liked it,
Everything.
but it's not a movie that I feel I ever need to go back and rewatch.
It has such a great cast because I really like Michael Parks, Depp, Justin Long.
That might be my
The
favorite
cast
part
is
of that
good.
movie. I wasn't expecting anything out of him. There's a lot of times, within the whole Jack Sparrow and what the hell was his name? Tonto, period of acting that you forget that the dude could act.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, he was an interesting aspect of it. It was one of those things where the pieces of it were greater than the whole.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, it's not like a great movie. It's not even like maybe a well put together movie, but it's an interesting movie.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, it's like, for me, it's like the Human Centipede. Like you watch it once to see what the fucking hubbub is, and then you never watch it again because, I mean, seeing him like be sewn into that walrus body is not, the most fun stuff. And then like the last scene where he's just eating the fish and like barking, and they walk away. I'm like, dude, you lost your girl to a kid from Sixth Sense. all fat.
I mean, it doesn't get much lower.
Quick question: did you ever see Red State?
Red State.
That was the
yes,
one Kevin Smith did right before that. The horror with Michael Parks as the preacher.
Yeah, I don't think I liked it.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but I know people tend to go on about like how that's better than Tusk was.
I would agree that it was probably better, but not by much.
And I take it you haven't gotten into the Cabinet of Curiosities yet?
I haven't. I've had a little conversation earlier this week, but not enough to really know much of anything yet. By November is usually my let's watch some TV shows and play video games because I am movied out. So between that and whatever the one with Heather
Midnight Club.
And finishing off Stranger Things and possibly trying to do Umbrella Academy. Those are probably my November to watch list, so to speak.
I know my wife is dreading coming up because every year I take vacation in between our anniversary and my son's birthday. And every year I rewatch the entire Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings special edition, extended edition runs. So that's like, I don't know, 6 days worth of fucking movies that I've...
That's so much, but I do think I prefer the extended edition.
You have to. I mean, I understand why they cut them for the theatrical release, because you want shit to flow and you don't want people to be in the theater for 4 hours, holding their pee and, oh my God, is this ever going to be out? But like this, a lot of the stuff that they cut just adds context and, even, whole character arcs to some of the characters. So.
Right.
But I mean, the fact that, we've been together for 16 years and I force her to do this every year, that's probably why she hates me. Well, she doesn't. I hope she doesn't hate me. So we didn't put out what we're doing next month, did we?
We have not. And interestingly enough, I just came across the movie that fits the criteria. I have it written down somewhere. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
it's on sale. I don't think it's even a good thing. It was just Voodoo has like a Halloween sale obviously going on. And I was like, oh, bunch of strangers meet, and I was like, making note.
So, what are we calling this? Like, it's going to be our top 5 of like strangers meeting and having to overcome something, or like disparate people banding together to escape.
They don't even have to band together. It's just random people end up together in a horror situation.
Okay. So that is what we'll be doing next month. We're going back to the monthly updates instead of weekly. So you guys will get a little break from us. Chance to revive and refocus basically back on horror for a little bit. Although I think we're doing a non-horror one for December again, which will be fun. Last year's best Christmas movies was one of the most fun podcasts I think we've done.
Yeah, I think we got something fun. I don't know. I have an idea that I'm going to float out to you when we're off air. One other thing I said I was going to touch on before we got off here was in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Why? I understand why the dude who played Rod Lane from the original Nightmare on Elm Street is there at Heather's husband's funeral. I still don't understand why Tuesday night, the girl who replaced Patricia Arquette and sang the opening song in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is there, because she has no ties whatsoever to anybody aside from potentially Robert Englund.
Well, what about Wes?
Wes didn't touch anything. He did the original, and then he did New Nightmare.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only answer I can come up with, Kent, is it's because you didn't watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when you were doing your rewatch.
And it's funny because, all I had to say was I skipped one movie of the franchise, and, like, everybody that read that knew exactly which one it was that I skipped. Yeah.
That's one of those movies that had, like, a really interesting potential and premise and just fell apart in the execution.
Poor execution. But I know that's a conversation for next year that we will hopefully be...
Yeah, definitely will hit Nightmare, the whole franchise, up sometime next year.
So, one other thing, speaking of Wes Craven, because Dom posted like this list of Wes Craven's top 15 movies. I'm okay. What do you rank higher? Do you rank Nightmare on Elm Street ahead of Scream, or Scream ahead of Nightmare on Elm Street?
Just those two movies taken separately?
I mean, because if you look at every list possible, those are numbers 1 and 2. And every list, it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
At this point in time, for me, especially having rewatched both of them within the last several years of doing this podcast, I would have to put Scream higher. I think.
Me too.
I think
as much as I like
if we
Freddy.
talk about like iconic villains, for me, Freddy's number 1. But going back and looking at just the quality of the movie now, like Scream rock, and like we've said, Scream and Scream 2 have 2 of the best cast lists ever in horror movies.
And the plot makes so much more sense in Scream compared... Nightmare on Elm Street is not a great movie. I know it's put on a pedestal because it was Freddy's first, and there's a lot of things to like. There's a ton of crap to dislike, and it never gets called out, whereas Scream minimizes the crap and has a ton to love.
Not only that, but I mean, just like, think about like the scene where he's in the alleyway and his arms are elongating. Like
yes.
Some of the VFX just really don't hold up in the original Nightmare, especially when you when you compare them to just a couple years later, like Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child. All of them had like way better nightmares.
They made sense, and like, why is Freddy just randomly cutting off his finger and squirting green goo? I don't know. Like, it. I almost wonder, like, if it would have made more sense if there had never been any sequels. Like, does part one then become a different thing unto itself? I think it actually does, but because we saw how it evolved into something different and, in my opinion, better, it just makes part one look so cheesy now. And yeah, I definitely put Scream 1 ahead of it, and I think I put Scream 2 ahead of it, quite frankly.
I would agree. I mean, I would have to go relook at Wes's whole filmography to remember everything that he did. You know, I remember the big ones, you know, like Scream, People Under the Stairs, you know,
that's the hidden gem.
Nightmare on Elm Street. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are ones that he did that I just don't remember him doing.
Serpent.
Oh, shit, that was him?
Another one.
There we go. That's another one.
Shocker.
Oh, yeah, okay, Shocker doesn't. Yeah.
But you know what? So somebody made a point. If Shocker is your worst film, you've had a pretty good career.
Yeah, what was that last one that he did that you made me watch?
The Girl in the Photographs?
that one, that was one of the ones where it's not, like, scary, but it was, when it's over, it bothered me, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, he didn't direct it. He just produced it. He had a big hand in it. That was, like, the last film he...
Are we just going by directors?
Well, see, that was the thing. Some of the lists included producer, some was only directed, so I just wanted to make that.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot he did Vampire in Brooklyn. Red Eye was actually pretty good.
I've never... See, that was one that I read about, and I was like, I don't think I ever saw it, and it has Cillian Murphy, who I really like.
Oh, I forgot he did Swamp Thing.
At a time when, you know, doing comic book movies was not a thing, really.
Yeah, so I mean, if you add in, you know, writer, director, producer, I mean, that would be tough. I mean, especially if they're going through and oh yeah, because then some of the ones I remember them being like from Wes Craven, you know, Dracula 2000, where he was a producer, or Carnival of Souls, or Wishmaster, kind of thing.
Right. Yes, exactly. Actually, I'll go and go one step even further. I may have Nightmare on Elm Street down to either number 4 or number 5 because I think New Nightmare might be a better movie.
I would agree.
And People Under the Stairs probably isn't. It's right there. It's like tied for me because People Under the Stairs is a completely different movie, but so good for so many reasons.
And, you know, I don't think it's really fucking scary, but I think Vampire in Brooklyn's a fucking really well-made movie, too. I mean, it's probably top 4, like, horror comedies, or it should be. You know, I think people forget about it a lot because it isn't as scary as some of the other ones, but...
That had Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett.
Yeah. I think I saw that way back, like, when it first came out, but I can't tell you a damn thing about it. And, you know, I mean, he still had, you know, Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes movies. Like, he had a really good career.
He did. I mean... It had to have been scary being him. I mean, imagine. I mean, you've heard about how Nightmare on Elm Street came about, right? Like he looked out his window and saw a creepy guy staring at him one day, and it bothered him enough that Freddy Krueger came to his mind.
Well, then there was, what was it, over in Japan, there was something happening. He'd read an article about something about possibility of like dying in your sleep, and between those two things, that's kind of how Freddy came about. So yeah, he has a hell of a thing going on. So
all right. Let's end this with my painful, hopefully 60% with the slash card for the week.
Let's see, slash cards. I was doing this Monday when. Had some drinky drinks with my buddy Ron, and I had a jalapeno moonshine. And
interesting.
You know what? It was. There was no alcohol taste. It was a weird taste, obviously, but no alcohol taste. But man, did that hit me hard when it did hit me.
Well, I'm glad you drank yourself into a stupor earlier in the week.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this one seems actually. This is a really easy card. I think you should get at least 4 of these.
As you. Hopefully.
Yep. I think well, all right. Here we go. Name 3 horror movies starring Anthony Hopkins.
Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal. And I don't know. Do they consider the Elephant Man horror?
I don't know. I'd never heard of this one movie.
Shit. What about I mean, is Hearts in Atlantis considered a horror movie, considering it's Stephen King?
You know, there's some horror aspects, so I would have. That was one I would have counted. So yeah. Wolfman was one I was thinking of, and
I forgot that he was the dead.
They list magic. I don't know what the hell magic is.
I don't either. Like MAGIC or MAGIK?
With a C. Yeah, it's. I am looking it up.
1978. And it's got a picture of a creepy puppet on the front, so.
Oh.
It looks like, it kind of looks like that.
And Margaret.
Looks like that episode, Burgess Meredith. It looks like that episode of the Tales from the Crypt.
Yes. All right. I would actually watch that based on that.
Yeah, it's got a good cast.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the one that I'm not sure, but since you are a well-read person, you might know this. The Haunting, 1963, was based on what Shirley Jackson novel?
The Haunting of Hill House?
Correct. That would have actually been my guess, but I was far from sure. I wasn't sure if that was her.
That's the only one I remember off the top of my head. From her.
You should be able to do the rest of these then, I think. All right. What prop from another 1980s horror franchise can be seen hanging on the wall of the tool shed in Evil Dead 2?
Fuck. Is it the hockey mask? No. All right. I haven't watched Evil Dead 2 in like.
It's the other obvious one then.
Wait, what other? I mean, there's a couple obvious ones. Like the glove. Okay.
The glove, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen Evil Dead 2 since like I think I was still living in New York. So like
it's been a few days.
24, 25 years.
Yep. All right. Now, I know that you know this because I think we just talked about him last week. I think. Or maybe I had a conversation with somebody else. What actor has played Freddy Krueger in all but one of the A Nightmare on Elm Street films?
I mean, this would be Robert Englund.
Correct. And do you remember the other actor that played Freddy?
Would have been Jackie Earle Haley.
Yes. Okay. This one's really tough here. 5 friends visit an abandoned family home in rural Texas. Do I need to say anything more?
Are we talking Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Yeah.
Yeah. Only to run into a giant with a chainsaw's deranged family in this 1974 film. Like, I felt like they gave too much away in that question.
Yes. Yes, they very possibly did.
Like, that was an easy card, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's an 80% for me. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah. So, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, I love how we managed to turn an hour episode of TV into 2 hours of discussion.
It's banter. It's a lot of things, and I I often hear, how do you guys watch something and analyze it so deeply? I'm like, I don't know if we're analyzing it so deeply. Like, we do have our questions, but it's just conversation more than
I mean,
analyzing
yeah,
in most
I really
phases.
think you can see the episodes that we do where we analyze stuff. Like our Saw analysis was analysis. I mean, that was what, like a 4.5 hour podcast. You know, for at the
Yes.
time, what, 8 movies. So I
Yes.
mean, a lot of times, yeah, we're just discussing. You know, and it's just two middle-aged white guys just giving opinions rather than going into analysis.
Right. To go into analysis, I think would just make us pretentious
Well, not
assholes.
only that, but like I like to watch, and like I've told you before, and I've said I think on the podcast before, when I watch stuff, I like to immerse myself in it. So if I'm actually analyzing it, it usually means that it's bad enough that I've lost that immersion, and now I'm looking to nitpick stuff apart to back up my feeling that this is not good television, cinema, what have you.
I would agree because when I'm writing my reviews, I write more about the bad stuff than I do the good stuff for that exact reason. Where else I'm just like, oh come on, really? Like this is really fucking happening? Like this person's so stupid, you know? So same idea, I think.
So, like we said, we'll be back sometime next month, probably in all likelihood before Thanksgiving, to talk about our five strangers get together and have to overcome something, or five best strangers get together, not five strangers in total, get together and have to overcome something in the horror genre. Aside from that, I hope you feel better next time. And Internet, this has been a pleasure to talk about. You know, we'll pick it back up whenever season 2 happens, probably 2024, like we said.
Yep.
All right. Good night from me.